One of the biggest things I hope you heard from Tom's club that grew the fastest was this 1 day a week offering for young kids. And I've put this out now for 10 to 15 years, but I'm just going to say it again because it doesn't get heard enough. And Loren's been doing a lot of it in a 2-on-2 way and a 3-on-3 way. The tie video that's on your DVD, the ribbon that goes down the middle of a court, whether it's beach court or whether it's grass court or whether it's an indoor court, because you can do some great things on the grass in the summer, and some great programs up in Nebraska that have state championship teams are formed because they just put up a grass court out. They put out a pitcher of lemonade and they say, parents sit inside and talk volleyball or whatever you want to talk about, the kids play. That's the playing side once they know how to play doubles. But where we're missing is that we think that our kids have to be old enough to coach younger kids. And so we take great pride, and I'm not saying it's wrong, with the 17-year-olds that are the 18s that are giving back by coaching. You don't want those guys doing it. You want your 13s and your 14s coaching the 6 to 11-year-olds. A, 8 and under's free. B, you do it during a normal practice. So, and my daughter's team did this for several years, and it's really successful. Every one of the kids that were in this group made varsity when they got up to the older level. But you have a normal 13 and a normal 14 in most of your clubs. You schedule Tuesday night to be little kid night. You put the ribbon up down the middle of the court, and for the first hour of the 2-hour practice for that night, your 13s coach the little kids, and they're partnered up one-on-one to play doubles. They're being the setter for the 2 kids to be the triples team, but they're the experienced one that can chase down all the crap that happens, you know. And then they may get to 4-on-4 if they're older and they've had some experience. When you do the ribbon down the middle of the net, you can put up 32 kids playing speedball, you know, and variations on a theme. 8 weeks, my daughter did it every other Tuesday. You see, what the club did was the 14s then coached the next Tuesday. And the next Tuesday, my daughter's team did it. So just twice a month, 1 hour, she was learning that which you teach, you learn. She was learning to be a better player by coaching. And I was there to help, but the gym costs were zero because it was part of the practice. The court costs being zero meant that the price that I could say and still make a little bit of money to scholarship kids was $50. And out of that $50 for 8 weeks, they got a USAV membership. They got the magazine. The magazine you can get for $2.50. You just heard from Ken why these younger kids should get the magazine. And they got a ball. Every kid got a ball, a molten ball, that they took home and played with for the other 6 days until they came back for their 1 day. In this case, they can get a beach ball too now. And the cost was $50, but the real cost was a shirt and the ball. And everything else was already free. Oh, and the 11 and unders had to pay $15 for the membership because they were older than 8. But, you know, that $15 membership most regions have. So I just hope that you heard that from Tom's growth of a club, the 1 day a week. Loren's going to take it and run with it because he does great things with this Rise Volleyball Academy. So without any further ado, Loren Anderson from Rise Academy. And he's hooked up.
I'm assuming you guys can hear me. So are you gonna put up the PDF, John?
Can you hear it?
You guys can all hear me, right? Yeah. Can you put up on the PDF? Yeah. No, just go. Can we come back to the website? As long as you go to the right, Rise Volleyball website. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, it's, the first slide's blank, so. Okay. We spent a while here today going over some great stuff from these two guys, and so I get to skip like half of my presentation because I don't want to repeat what they said, which is awesome because it means that we don't have to sit so long. But just a quick introduction, if you want to go to the first slide. There we go. My name is Loren Anderson. I'm from Boise, Idaho, and I think one of the reasons why John asked me to come and talk to you guys is understanding that you don't need to be from a major metropolitan area in which to have success running some of these principles, and that, you know, Boise's 300,000 people, and we've, you know, managed to do something, I guess, that some people look at and say is awesome and great. I think it is. Just kind of wanted to talk to you about some of the ways that we've made it happen. And I'm going to hit on technical stuff and philosophy stuff, and I'm going to go through it really fast. One of the things that I have here is I want to make sure that just because I'm standing up here, you guys don't see me as an expert. I don't consider myself an expert at all, really, at anything. I'm a college dropout who dropped out of college to play volleyball. I have never really, if you notice on the slide before, there's no initials after my name and no title before my name. I don't have any kind of credentials that make me an expert really at anything in life. But what I've really gotten good at over the years is listening to experts, listening to people like these guys and definitely this guy, and putting it into practice in my gym in the way that I know is going to work best for my athletes. And so one of my coaches calls me the 3M of volleyball coaches. If you're familiar with 3M, the business, they are famous for taking products that were already made and then revamping them and making them better. And so they call me the 3M coach. Just a little bit about our story. I added this because I loved when Tom asked us to think about our credo or our vision or our mission statement. And this is our mission statement, and I thought it would be great to share it with you guys. It's character-driven, athlete-centered, and developmentally focused. And this is a mission statement that we added about a year ago. And to us, this really speaks to who we are as a club and what we're trying to do, not trying to do. I won't say that word anymore, John. What we are doing in our area. So you can go to the next one. We started in 2010. I just kind of leapt off of a bridge and said, I want to do this. I worked in the customer service industry, the food industry for almost 20 years, had been coaching club just as a team coach since I was 18, and just one day just said, I don't want to do this food industry thing anymore. I love coaching. I want to make a living off of it. Everybody said the only way you can do that is to coach in college. I know a lot of college coaches and none of them make a living off of it. And so I figured there had to be a way to at least make an okay living off of it. And you're blocking my slide. And so I just decided to jump into it head first and just see how it worked. And so in 2010, we started with 5 teams, 4 coaches. I was coaching 2 teams. And we were running a small school gym. We weren't really running it. I was the girls volleyball coach, the girls and boys basketball coach, and the girls and boys track coach in return for the use of their gym for our volleyball club. And so you can go to the next one. Maybe. Did you lose control again? So now up to 2016, this is our 6th season, and now we have 21 teams this year. I have 30 coaches working for our program, and we rent a 14,000 square foot facility in which we have 2 volleyball courts and a lot of extra space. So I guess the story I'm about to tell you is how we got there and why we were able to do that. And I'm not sure. It's 6 years that people always told me when you start your own business, if you make it past the 5th year mark, you're a successful business. I don't define what we're doing as successful yet. I feel like 20 years down the road, I'll be able to tell you if it's successful. But I think this is kind of how we got to where we are right now. So I think you need to have 2 really distinct sides to your club. And we've really approached this. The first year, I did not do this, and I almost failed after the first year. But it wasn't failed due to coaching, and it wasn't failed due to kids being unhappy. It was failed this side, the business side of being a volleyball club. And when Tom asked us to write down the 8 things that we think define a successful volleyball club, I got 7 down on that pie chart, and I was having a really hard time getting number 8, trying to think of what it was. And then it dawned on me that maybe the most important part of running a successful volleyball club, which was my number 8, but probably should be number 1 for everybody, is open. If your club isn't open, you're not teaching kids. And so a lot of the decisions that we've made over the last 6 years have revolved around how to make sure that our doors stay open. And sometimes you have to make some meet in the middle type things that maybe these don't follow my philosophies 100%, but they keep the door open. And I just think that that's a really important side of it. So I'm really going to go through this business side of it pretty fast because a lot of it was touched on. But one of the smartest things that I did as a club director that really knows nothing about business was hire a business manager. I had a coach, one of my first 4 coaches in my club, who has a really deep business background. And when I said that this business is probably going to go out of business, I approached him and said, can we use your business knowledge to help make this successful? And he said, sure. So I brought him on as, I guess I should preface all this by saying that this is my full-time job. This is what I do for a living. I don't have any other job. And my tongue-in-cheek title for this whole presentation to begin with was, best practices for a club director to make sure that your club is successful comes down to 2 things, luck and 80 hours a week. But really it also comes down to this. Hiring a business manager to help me out was a huge step. He takes care of all the financial side of things, the stuff that I don't know anything about, and I have absolutely no interest in knowing anything about other than the fact of knowing the numbers, yes, but not how we get where we get. He takes care of all of that. And so I am on salary, and he is also on salary, a smaller salary, but we're the 2 salaried employees of our volleyball club. And the things that he's done to make sure that help make us run is, Tom touched on it, you've got to run it like a business. This is the biggest lesson that I learned, was you have to, you can't look at it and say, I have a club, and I'm just going to be a club. You have a business, and you have to be willing to look at it from a business perspective, which includes things like making sure you have a yearly budget planned out. I see a lot of clubs, I talk to a lot of club directors who, they run it like a pass-through thing, Well, we've got to pay this much money for this tournament, so we're going to ask you for that much money, and then it comes through us and goes to the tournament. And I find that that's just a really poor way to set a budget. Create an Excel spreadsheet, do whatever's comfortable for you. I'm not sure how Steve does it, but he's created a yearly budget for us that includes all of our costs, all of our expenses, all of our income. He has a cushion for us. It's definitely not 50%. I sure wish it was. And that's included in this yearly budget. And then go ahead to the next one, John. And with that is a monthly budget, because a volleyball club, we have a high time and a low time. November through up to June, we're getting a lot of money that rolls in from the teams. June, July, August, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. We have a lot of money rolling in because we use that time for camps. September, October, November, I'm not sure anybody hands us money during that time. Or they do now because we've gotten smart about it. But definitely when I started, we didn't see any money at that time. So we wanted to make sure we created a monthly budget that coincided with our yearly budget to ensure that we had enough money in the bank in October when there was no club volleyball going on, and do we have enough money in the bank to pay the lease on our facility? I mean, that was a huge, these two things, the monthly budget and the yearly budget, are the only reason we were allowed to lease this 14,000 square foot facility. We don't have investors. We don't have sponsors. We don't have, no one has ever given me money to start this program, to start this club. It's all money that I've earned. Started off with just me taking money that I had saved and saying, well, let's go buy some volleyballs and start a club at a school. But now it's gotten to the point where obviously we run a facility and we have a monthly lease that's due. And if we can't pay that monthly lease, we get kicked out. And so we have to make sure that in October we can pay that monthly lease, as well as in March, which is the easy one. But, you know, October's the one where we're kind of like, huh.
So can you tell them what happened to you in October of this year?
Yeah, to make October even worse. October of this past year, we had our facility broken into and $25,000 worth of equipment stolen. And again, that's not stuff that somebody paid for us. That's stuff that I had accumulated over 6 years paying for on my own. And we still don't know how they broke in. There's still a lot of contention about the fact that it could be, you know, quote unquote, an inside job or something like that. We think, my personal feeling is that it was somebody who came into our facility for one of our tournaments, probably an older brother or something like that, saw all this. I'm a tech guy. I'm a nerd when it comes to tech stuff, and we have a ton of it in our gym. And they probably saw all that stuff and said, wow, you know, we can take this stuff and make some money off of it, and figured out a way to jimmy a door or something like that. And I mean, as the evidence is built up, we've kind of figured out the door locks for the exterior of our building were actually not installed correctly, and were really susceptible to being able to broken into. So now we're in conversations with our landlord about their part in the financial recouping from that, because if they didn't provide a secure building for us to lease, then they should be providing at least part of, you know, getting our money back at least from that experience. So I mean, it sucked, but we were able to do one really important thing. Like, I walked in at noon on a Wednesday and walked in and all the stuff was gone. And at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, we were coaching. And that, to me, was the most important part, because they didn't take the volleyball nets, they didn't take the sport court, and they didn't take all the volleyballs. And so the athletes were able to come in at 5. Nobody knew that we were broken into for 3 weeks because we didn't share it with anybody, and we were just able to coach. Our most important asset was the coaches, and nobody stole those, fortunately, and the sport court, the volleyball nets, and the volleyballs. So we were able to keep it going. And that was, I think, the biggest lesson I learned from that whole experience was, like, all that other extra stuff it's nice, it adds value, but ultimately it comes down to, do you have a net, do you have a ball, and do you have a qualified, caring individual there to help guide the athletes on their path to mastery. So you can go to the next one, John. This is the other step that we took. We've hired an accountant that is somebody who works with small businesses, and we use him regularly for advice as well as to prepare taxes. And I don't know I'm not going to use any of the right terms for any of this stuff because I don't know any of this stuff. But it's why we hire him. He's given us a ton of great advice, and it's super cheap. I think we're paying him like $15 a month or something like that. And so, like, in my opinion, that's more than worth the money that we're paying. And so, you know, I think this is a critical step for you if you are, running. Oh, and I forgot to mention at the beginning, and I meant to, I apologize. We're not a nonprofit. We are an LLC, Rise Volleyball Academy, LLC. We chose not to be a nonprofit for specific reasons. I could always share those with you guys. I don't know that they're important to this presentation, but I mean, I want things done my way. I don't want a board that revolves every 6 years to tell me how to run my business, because it is my business. And we believe in doing things. I have a core group of people who influence me and give me advice, but I don't want them making the decisions. And so that was why we chose to be an LLC rather than a nonprofit. So you can go to the next one. Here's a big one for us that we learned, and if you are running a volleyball club and if you're leasing a facility, definitely this, but even if you're not, we did this when we were using the high school gym, is figure out ways to diversify your revenue. Run camps, run clinics, do private lessons if you believe in that. That's a topic for another day. Just figure out ways that you can use the resources you have, which is your coaches, your volleyball net, and your volleyballs, to bring in more revenue than just off of your teams. Because there's a ton of other ways to make revenue using those 3 things that don't revolve around just having club teams. And we've explored quite a few of them. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning coach, so we also do run strength and conditioning programs through our facility here now, but I did it at the high school that I was at. And so, we've seen both sides of that, whether you're, I guess, how many of you guys lease like a school gym or a church gym? How many of you have like your own facility, either you lease it or you own it? Okay, so I'm trying to touch on both sides of that because I understand that it is about half and half in here. So we've been through both and we understand both. And we made the decision to get into our own facility because I got tired of setting up a net every night. I mean, that was really the #1 thing. Like, I was like, gosh, I come in here every day and I set this net up. And the wear and tear on the net just from taking it down and putting it up. And so, we originally moved into a 1-court facility that was an old warehouse with steel sides and metal shards jutting out of it all over the place. And we literally, I mean, in the first year we were there, we probably popped like 150 balls. I don't know. One day a girl shanked a ball into the ceiling, which was just insulation, like not raw insulation, but the plastic coated insulation. She shanked the ball into the ceiling really hard, and out of this hole in it that we had, a little tiny hole about this big, out of the hole falls a saw blade, like right in front of her. And I was just like, wow, this is a great warehouse. Thanks. It had been used as like a machine shop before we took it over, and it wasn't an ideal place to play volleyball. The ceiling was 22 feet high, no heaters, and we're in Boise, Idaho, which means in the summer is awesome. You open the doors, it's beautiful. In the wintertime, I bought a thermometer just out of curiosity, and we were playing, and it was 44 degrees inside the gym during team practices. So some of the kids showed up looking like they belonged in his program more than they belonged in my program. So then we were in there for 2 years, and then we got this opportunity to move into a brand new warehouse space, 14,000 square feet. We're the first tenants. We share, it's a 85,000 square foot warehouse, and we have part of it. Next to us is a building supply company. On the other side of us is a warehouse for bottled water, which I have a key to, just in case. I hope the landlord didn't hear that. So you can go to the next one. I think this is an important question to ask yourself as a club director, is where is your money being made as a business owner? One of the 2 gentlemen here mentioned that idea. I think it was you mentioned that the club that you were talking to was saying that why should I be bothered on how many kids move forward from this, because that's where most of my money is made, is from that, what was it, 11 and under or something like that part. And I think this is an important thing. Like, I want really competitive teams in my club. Out of the 21 teams we have, 8 of them are registered with USA Volleyball. That means all the rest stay within our region and don't participate in USA Volleyball. That brings up another topic about my region, but for another day. But you know, we have teams that don't go to national qualifiers. We have teams that don't even participate in big tournaments, and we have teams that do. I mean, we have teams that go to USA qualifiers and big tournaments, and I love those teams. Like I'm a competitive guy, and I started my volleyball program, the whole club, with the intent of having really awesome teams that could go and compete at the national level. They're not where we make our money. We make our money off of the mid-range teams, the teams that travel regionally, but the kids play 3 sports. They're also in piano and whatever else they're doing, and they can't commit to being on a team like that. They come in and they get the same coaching, and they enjoy that. And that's like the mid-range and low-range teams are where we really actually make most of our money at. Because the high-range, the upper-end teams, we're spending a lot of money on those teams. We have to fly them places. We have to go stay in hotels for long periods of time. We have to foot, the bill for the bigger tournaments. They need 2 jerseys, not just 1 like the local teams do. So you've got all these things that add up, and we don't. And so while sure we can charge them a lot more, we also pay a lot more for them. So the money isn't coming from them. So I think it's an important thing to recognize is where is your opportunity to actually make your money as a business for these things. I don't think it's your highest level teams. I think it's definitely more the mid-range and down into the younger levels too. Like you can really plumb that, 10 through 12 year range. In our area where I'm at, and I don't know how this holds true with you guys, but in our area, girls, I'm mostly a girls. Our whole program is girls because there's really not a big boys thing in the hotbed of volleyball of Boise, Idaho. There are 2 programs that are there now, and they're getting going. But the girls in our area typically don't really start playing volleyball until they're somewhere in that 10 to 12 range. Some do, and the ones that do start earlier tend to be the better ones. They stand out in our area. But we get kids who roll in at 7th grade, and they've never touched a volleyball, but they hear it's awesome and they want to play. And that's actually a really large portion of the kids that come into our program. And so I feel like there's a great untapped, when we're starting to tap it, resource, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, where we can start making some revenue off of that. But also, and this will come in when I get to the other side of it, but everything that we do to keep our doors open is also done to grow the game in our area and make sure that the kids get a great experience. So you can go to the next one. So part of our thing is we're not just club teams. We're really trying to be, that's why we rebranded ourselves 3 years ago to an academy instead of club. We were a Rise Volleyball Club, and then we decided we're doing a bunch of other stuff. We need to call it something different than just club, because club kind of gives the impression that you're just your teams. But we do so much more than that. We wanted to give people that impression with our name. So we called it Rise Volleyball Academy, which is a good thing because then Chris opened up, and he's watching, opened up his club in California called Rise Volleyball Club. And he's a good guy. We talk all the time, but people confuse us all the time. So you can go to the next one. So these are some of the ways that we diversify our revenue and that we look at like things that are beyond the teams. So we have our whole summer. Our school system in Boise allows 10 weeks in the summer when the kids are out of school before they start volleyball practice in the fall. There's usually roughly around 10 weeks in the summer. I run 10 camps, 1 every week. I run 10 clinics, 1 every week. I run a strength and conditioning program in the mornings before those camps and clinics. And then we also work to sublet our facility to other people who can use it. The issue we come up with that is because our schedule flip-flops in the summer and then during club season. So when the kids are in school, we're using the gym from 4 o'clock on. When they're out of school, we're using the gym before 4 o'clock. And so it's really hard to find somebody who's willing to sublet the space and also have that flip-flop schedule. So we have to do kind of more of a short-term sublet where we get maybe like a CrossFit guy who's going to use it during the hard months of the winter where he can't be outside, but then when the weather gets nice, he's out at the park with people. And so I really feel like that's important. And then I think a really huge part of keeping your doors open is this, filling your downtime. Like, even, we're not good at this yet. We're still trying to get better at this. But I mean, I look at our gym, and like right now, today, the kids will roll in today in the gym at 4 o'clock, and they'll be in the gym until 10. Nothing else is happening in there. That's, I mean, the business side of me just sees dollar signs in all those other parts. But it also sees opportunities to either grow the game of volleyball or just provide physical activity for youth or for adults. And so, you know, we're currently talking to a homeschool network in our area about using our gym as a gym just for their PE, not a volleyball necessarily thing. We're talking to a couple tech firms that are really close to us about doing a noon-hour volleyball league for their employees, which I'm really excited about that one because there's actually a ton of interest for it. So we're, you know, I think just figuring out ways to fill your downtime. Now, if you lease a school gym, this isn't an issue for you. But if you have your own facility where you're leasing a space and no one else is leasing it. I know some people share a lease on a space where they're going in a certain time. But if you have it like ours, where it's just our space, you've got to focus on this. This is what I've seen run 2 or 3 clubs out of business that I know of, at least in the last few years, is they just can't make the dollars meet, and that's because they're not filling their downtime. I think it's a great way. My intention with this kind of stuff is the more money we can make off of this, the less I have to charge my kids to be part of my club. And that's the intention with it. I have a friend of mine who runs a club down in Arizona. They have their own facility. 52 weekends out of the year, he runs a tournament. It's either a basketball tournament, a futsal tournament, or a volleyball tournament. 52 weekends out of the year. He uses the money from those tournaments to scholarship like 75% of the kids in his club. He runs his club comes from kind of a disadvantaged area of Phoenix, and 75% of his kids are on scholarship with him. And all that money comes from the use of the facility on the weekends. I think that's crazy. 52 weekends out of the year, he's running a tournament of some kind. I'm hoping we can get to that point sometime. You can go ahead and flip it, John. I'm not a linear thinker. I apologize. Some of this stuff's all over the place, but I couldn't figure out whether to put this on business or volleyball. Have a handbook. I couldn't figure out how to underline and bold this and put exclamation points next to it. Have a handbook. Like on our website, it's right on the top of the page of our team program, and it outlines everything we do in our building. Not just teams, but it talks about camps, it talks about clinics, it sets forth all the policies and procedures that we have in our program. I think it's a great, I think it can be something that works for a lot of different things. It's a great marketing tool. People go to your website, they see your handbook, they open it up and start reading through it, and they're like, oh, I like that idea. Oh, I like that idea. Oh, I like that idea. Suddenly now you've got them hooked, and they didn't even look at your website. All they did was look at the handbook. But it's also a really great resource for people to, if they are interested in learning about your program, but it's also that policy and procedure manual that ensures that people are following what you're doing in your program and making sure that any rules you have are actually being followed. So, John, you can go to the next one. I now know that this is the worst way to communicate with your teams. I didn't know that before today. If I had known that before today, I might have spent less time on it. But the reality, yeah, if you want to switch to it, John. So he was showing it during the break. That's not it. You're on the E. Go to the E. Yeah, you put it on there. I saw the other tab. There you go. So this is our website. And we use WordPress. Like I see a lot of people, there's a lot of companies out there, you know, Sports Engine and all these others that have a built-in package for you and all this stuff. We use WordPress for our website, and it was actually provided for me by Sportamingo, which is another version of a sports hosted customer relations management tool. But I do all this. Nobody does this for me. The outline, the layout, the colors, everything. I just did it. I mean, if you're not familiar with WordPress, it's pretty user-friendly. It's pretty easy to do. We've got everything we need up here, and I think a really important point that you mentioned was, I think you mentioned it when you showed the hockey page. Does your front page talk about the things that your club members need to know, or does it talk about the things that people who have never heard of your program? I look at this front page of our website as something that's going to hook somebody that's not part of my program yet. I don't put anything on the front page that somebody who's in my program needs to know, because it's the worst way to communicate to them, as we now know. On the front page is the stuff where if somebody's looking for a volleyball club, or they're at another volleyball club and they want to know about me, that's what goes on my front page. Some great, if you scroll up to the top, John, we've got some good pictures here. I just try to update this like every couple months or whatever, and you scroll down. So then I've got this, just part of us talking about who we are, and then I go down and I talk about, one of our things that we're really proud of is our motivational map, where we talk about mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And you can keep scrolling down. And then a link to more about our coaching styles, and then a map and important links, and that's kind of it. And then if you want to go all the way up to the top, so then on the website we've also got a lot of other stuff about our team programs, our training philosophy. If you'll do me a favor real fast, John, and click on the long-term athletic development tab. Do me a favor, don't read this part. Because if he looks at this part, he's going to go, wait, all of that came off of the ADM site of USA Hockey. Yes, it did. I was stolen directly off of the page. Yeah, it was a lot of this. I mean, it was all basically. I've been studying long-term athletic development for 15 years on my own. When I came across the ADM model as used by USA Hockey, I said, I really like how concisely it takes all those ideas and puts them together. So I threw it up on the website. I don't know how many people read this. If I had to guess, out of every 1,000 people that go to our website, I'd be really surprised if one person read all the way through this. So why is it there? Because it's part of who we are. If somebody ever asks me, what's your club philosophy? Well, I got a place to send them. The stuff on the links over here on the right are actually the stuff that's directly off of USA Hockey. So I guess I did change that. It was a lot more obvious, but now it's not so obvious. Don't click on those. I don't want any lawyers involved. So I think this stuff's important. We've got stuff about our teams. We have our summer camp schedule, which we're slowly working on. I'll get to this. This is our 12 and under training program. We don't want to click on that really fast. This will kind of give you an idea. The summer camps, John, if you want to click on that. This just gives you an idea of what we do for summer camps. It's not quite done yet, as you can see, but I mean, this lists all of our summer camps that we do. It looks a lot worse on there than it does on my computer. I'll have to look at it. But we do all these different summer camps, one every week. They're a 3-day camp, 4 hours each day, so it's 12 hours of training. We charge $125. We think that's the right price in our market. I don't know what the right price in your market is. That you should be an expert on the price in your market. And then back up to the top, John, there's just one other thing I want to show on the website, and we'll get off of this. The resources tab, we have a whole page based around college recruiting guide. And then I have a page on videos and books. Again, that one's it's who we are. I'm big into showing videos, big into books I read. I want people to see them. So you'll have some YouTube videos linked in here, and then I have a Pinterest page, and kind of weird for me to say that out loud. But I might actually, I liked the Flipboard idea. I might have to use that because I really don't feel good about saying I have a Pinterest page. But it was really cool to be able to link in our books that have influenced our program. So I read a ton. I do a lot of research, and so I'm able to put a little widget in there. And then these different videos that have influenced me, you know, Training Ugly and Changing the Game Project, and some of the other videos from people who have influenced us. And then maybe the most important part of a website, I think, is the calendar tab. It just shows what's going on in the gym, like what's going on and what are we doing in our gym. And one thing that we do maybe that I think this hits on the safe sport area, and I would highly challenge each of you to think about this. We chose this year not to put the names or pictures of any of our athletes on our website, and we chose not to publicly post our practice times on our website. We had parents question that last year, and I had to agree with them that it seems a little bit unsafe to put the name of a teenage girl on a website on one page, and then on another page of that website let a complete stranger know where that teenage girl is going to be and at what time she's going to be there. So we chose not to do that anymore. The only people that know our rosters are our teams or the tournament directors. The only people that know our practice times are the parents and the kids that are practicing at those times. So as you can see on our calendar, it just says team practices start at 4:30. It doesn't say which teams. Yeah, you have a question? Mm-hmm.
And I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, having a password, I mean, you can work that into WordPress.
Yeah.
You can have a page that has a password
Yeah.
where parents can go in and see that information there.
Yeah.
But our thought on it was, number one, we all have too many passwords. You know, we all have so many different login items, so many different passwords. And why does a parent need, this is just our opinion, I'm definitely not going to try to argue with you in any way, but in my opinion, why does a parent need to see their kid's face on a website? Who is the face there for? The face is there for someone who's doesn't already know the kids on the team. And so if a college coach or somebody from a rival team comes to your website to see their picture and see what the roster is, they're the ones that would benefit maybe most from that, and they don't have the password. And I'm not going to disseminate that password because then it defeats the whole purpose of not putting their faces on the website. So, you know, we have I'm more than happy to give that information to the people I think it should belong to. But I mean, I like your idea too. It's definitely, the logistics of that were a little beyond my scope. I couldn't figure out how to make it work and have it make sense for us. So, but if you have, then maybe I'll pick your brain later. So, question over there. Hey, he's got a mic right next to you.
So you're saying with Safe Sport, you're not putting the girls' names next to their face, but you still have pictures up of your teams. It's just no connection as to who they are and what practice.
Yeah, I have no idea if that's actually a Safe Sport thing. I just said it, to me it feels like a Safe Sport thing, where I'm not going to put a girl's name and her face together and like, you know, you go to a lot of, I definitely don't not trying to condemn anybody, but I just want people to think about it. You go to a lot of club websites, you're going to find a girl's face, her name, what team she's on, and then on somewhere else on the website, you're going to have a schedule that says that girl's team is practicing at this facility at this time. Well, I don't know, like if I was a predator, that seems to be a really easy way to find a group of 10 teenage girls walking out of a building late at night. And there's just a part of me that silently screams inside, don't do that. And so we just decided there wasn't enough benefit to putting that stuff on our website to override the possibility. Like if it was only one girl in 40 years of having a club that had something happen and you could relate it back to that, that's 100% more than I ever want it to be. So it just wasn't worth it for us. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Do you want to go back to the slides? It's on this. Don't close the tab. The other tab. There we go. So I mentioned Sportamingo earlier. I think this is a huge thing for everybody, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably already figured this out. But if you got to have a back end to your program. I think a lot of people try to do it by hand to save themselves money, and I'm a big proponent of that idea that you pay experts to do expert work. Like some people, their car breaks down and they're like, oh, I'll fix it, and they take 4 weeks to fix their car, where if they'd have paid a mechanic, it'd have been done in 24 hours. I feel like there's nothing wrong with spending money when you're paying somebody to do a better job than you could in a better way than you ever could. And so, we use Sportamingo. Again, there's a lot of other options out there, but I've explored all those other options, and I don't want it to sound like a plug, but it is a little bit of a plug, that I think that Sportamingo is the best option I've found of all the different programs that I've ever used. And I would at least suggest that if you're looking for something like that, to check it out. Matt, who runs Sportamingo, is a volleyball coach. It is developed with the volleyball director in mind. It's got a lot of features to it that I think are awesome, and they save me a ton of time. And my business manager, Steve, who deals with all the payments, he just told me 2 days ago, he's like, getting Sportamingo was the smartest thing we've ever done, because it saves him a ton of time in dealing with all the payment side of things and checking invoices and communicating with parents. And it's also a back end that allows registration, like for our camps. They click on a link, it takes them to Sportamingo, they can register for it there. So it's very similar to a lot of other programs that are out there like that. It's just the most intuitive one that I've found, and it works in with, well, and Matt's awesome. Like, I call him, hey, I need this changed. Okay, it's done. A lot of those bigger programs, they're not going to change it for one guy, for one director in Boise, Idaho. Every platform is individual on Sportamingo, so if you want to change, she just changes it for you. So it's pretty cool. Next one, I want to talk about just communication in general. Mentioned earlier, not parent education, but what was the term? Parent information. So I've always just called it parent resources. I actually have an email group that is called Parent Resources, and it's a voluntarily, like, every parent in my club doesn't get an email from me with this information. I sent an email out and said, how many of you would like to receive weekly parent resources? And they signed up for it, and they joined that group. And then weekly I send out things about, like, how to be a great sport parent, what kind of nutrition you should be providing at home for your kids, things you can help, like, what are the 6 most important words in your child's athletic career? You just did it. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I love to watch you play. So I think, so I made it voluntary. I don't send it out to all of them, because I told them, you guys lead busy lives. Some of you don't want another email in your inbox, but some of you lead a busy life, want this information, and don't want to go find it on your own. I have all that information. I'll send it to you out on a weekly basis. Or I come across new stuff, and I'm like, wow, that would be really cool to share with the parents. So then I'll just shoot it out to that parent resource list. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from it. This is the first year I've done that, and I get a lot of feedback from it. A lot of parents really happy with it, and it's part of that parent information thing, or I just see it as parent education, but definitely the wording helps. Social media communication is huge. We know that that's the era that we live in, and I think the more that you can use social media to help promote your product as well as promote your message, I think that you are going to get more people. I like the blog, the mommy blog idea. I'm going to be looking into that. On the administration side, so that means me, my business manager, my assistant, my coaches. I just thought I'd throw up a couple ideas that maybe you guys haven't looked into. One is Trello. Trello is a collaborative organizational platform where you can have like 6 people all logged into, what do they call it? Sorry, it's the cards thing where it's based on like some organizational thing where like you have Post-it notes on the wall and you put them in orders and you say, okay, we moved this from the to-do column over to the done column, but it's an online version of that. So, and you can actually do it collaboratively. So if you have an assistant who works with you, or you have someone else in administration who works with you, you can use Trello, and like you add a card and they see that it was added, and you can assign it to one of them. My plan is next year to actually use it with our coaching staff as a whole, so that I can assign a card to a specific coach, like, hey, I need you to work with so-and-so on your team to make sure this is happening. And it's a super awesome collaborative, real-time collaborative thing that also has mobile apps. So it's a good thing to use. Google Groups is like, I think it's been around for a long time, but I just discovered how wonderful it is in the last like 6 months. If you don't have a Google account, you can get one. You can get email addresses for your club through Google for really cheap. So like mine is Loren at risevolleyballacademy.net. My assistant, my business manager, Steve, his is Steve at risevolleyballacademy.net. I think we pay like $5 a month for that. To me, that's well worth it, because when people are wondering what the email addresses is, we have one that's info@ that goes to both of us. And then through Google Groups, you can create mailing lists. So the parent resource one, when I go to my email client and I want to send an email out to all the parents for the parent resource one, it's parents at risevolleyballacademy.net. Sends it out to all of them. I have one for all of my coaches that's coaches at risevolleyballacademy.net. So it's just a really easy way for me to simplify sending out the communications to the people that matter. I didn't discover it until too late this year to make an entire club one, but next year my plan is to have a Google group that is every parent in my club, so that when I want to send out that email blast to everyone, it's just a really easy thing to do. Quip is another collaborative thing where you can actually create things like letters, like a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet collaboratively. So if you're using that for any reason where you need people to be able to all work together on something, whether it's a practice plan, which is one way that I've used it that I think is awesome. You create a practice plan on Quip, and it's shared with all of your coaches. And so, and that gets into the structure of how we run our program, which I'll get to later. Hopefully not too much later. I'm trying to go fast, right? Team app is another great communication tool. People are always looking, I think, for the mobile communication tool with their clubs. Team app's a really good one. It's probably the best one that I've found. So let's get to the volleyball side of things. It just dawned on me that looked like the NCAA Division I volleyball logo. I'm stealing stuff from everybody. Camps, we already touched on that a little bit, but I think a really important side that you can help build your club is by holding camps. If a kid who's never been in your gym before, never worked with your coaching staff before, and they come to one of your camps and have a really fun educational time, you probably just got a new team member. And so I see it as a really awesome way to help build your program, as well as the business side of it. You can keep going, John. I'm going to start going faster. Clinics, just another version of the same thing. Camps for us means 3 days, 4 hours a day. Clinic is a 1 hour, or 1 day, 3 hours. However you'd want to define it. It works in your market, I think, is the important thing. And then private lessons is another great way to help build your programs, whether you do them or you have people in your program who do them. We have used in the past where we've had our coaches kind of act as independent contractors when they're doing private lessons. They sublet the space from me, and then they do a private lesson. And we don't charge them very much because they're one of our coaches. And because we know that if the kid comes in and does a private lesson with them and has a good time, they might end up at tryouts. So team program, this is specific to us. And this is certainly not me saying this is how you should run your team program. But these are some ideas that we've come across that have worked really well for us, and I thought I would share them. John. I got to get to it on mine then. Okay, so one really important one that I mentioned, we have a 2-court facility. And I know some of you are going to freak out at this, but bear with me. We have a 2-court facility. At any given time, we have 4 teams in the gym. We always practice with 2 teams on 1 court. Don't freak out. Advantages to this for us. Number 1, we can keep smaller teams because we don't need 12 kids on a team to have an effective practice. If we have 2 teams of 8, we can have a really effective practice with 16 girls on one court. And I mean, I could get into how we run our practices. I'm a very huge follower of the idea, proponent of, and practitioner of the game teaches the game. And we play all the time in our gym. We don't do drills. The last time I hit a ball at a girl in practice was a very long time ago. We let them play, and it's high intensity playing all the time. And so when you have 16 girls on the court, yeah, does a girl stand off the court for a little bit every once in a while? Sure does, and she makes really good use of that time because she has to recover from the intense game she was just playing. And so I think it's just worked in. But it's worked really well for us. I would never go back. Like, there are times, there's been a couple times in recent memory where we've only had 1 team on 1 court. And myself and the girls stood around and looked at each other like, what do we do? Like, how do we practice with only 8 of us on this court? And what does that usually default to? Hey, let's play doubles. And so it's great. But I think one great advantage to this idea is that we get more kids in our space. Like I said, we only have 2 courts. If I had 1 team on a court, we could not afford our facility. So to afford our facility, we bring more kids in. I think we still give them a high-quality training opportunity, even though there's more of them on a court than maybe some of you think would be appropriate. So we do overlap our practices, and this is another important part that we do. I tell people we have 21 teams plus a 12 and under program coming through our gym every week. People are like, how do you do that on 2 courts? This is how we do it. Monday through Friday, we have a practice that runs 4:30 to 6:30, a practice that runs 6 to 8, and a practice that runs 7:30 to 9:30. And the overlap is used, I don't know, I actually got the idea from hockey. The overlap is used, we call it off-court time instead of, what is it called in hockey? Off ice, okay. So we call it off-court instead of off ice. So they have an off-court time during the first 15 minutes, and they have off-court time during the last 15 minutes. And that allows us to be able to overlap our teams and get some good work done on things that are not specific necessarily to volleyball. That off-court time is used for like mobility training and strength and conditioning, and just teams meeting and talking and watching video and things like that. So other things I wanted to mention about our team program is that we have this 12 and under program. John clicked on the link earlier on our website. Our 12 and under program is my buy-in 100% to the idea that you do not need to progress a kid to playing doubles, that you can just let them play doubles no matter how old they are. It's also my 100% buy-in to the idea that you don't need a full-sized court, nor should you have a full-sized court to teach a 12 and under kid how to play volleyball. So we have a 2-court facility. Our 12 and under program in the fall for Ignition, we had 48 girls age ranging from 8 to 11 in our 2-court facility. And we ran nets the other way, down the middle of the standard courts. And we were able to put in 4 courts on each large normal-sized court. And so we had 4 doubles courts in there. And so the kids were able to play doubles constantly. And I sure would have loved to have had somebody like that I could have said, hey, I don't pay you any money, but can you just stand here and count how many times this girl touches the ball versus a sixes practice? And one day maybe we'll get around to being that technical about it, or maybe we'll buy some fancy equipment that tells us for it. But I think it was a pretty common sense thing that those kids sure as heck touched the ball a lot more than they would have in a 6-on-6 practice. I will never, after doing this, I will never, ever again in my life have a 12 and under program that is a 6-on-6 team in my gym. I think, in my opinion, it's not the best way to provide a great learning opportunity for those kids. Now, if I have a kid who's 12 and under, who's a phenomenal volleyball player, who maybe can play on a 6-on-6 team, I'll just move her up to 13 and under team. We have 3 this year that we did that with. So I'm not saying that you're limiting a kid. I'll just let them play up. But right now in the team season, we have 34 girls doing this 12 and under program. Courts turned sideways, small courts. They come in, their practice looks like 2 versus 2 for 45 minutes, 4 versus 4 for 45 minutes, and then they go home. And the coaches are roaming around, giving feedback, challenging them to think of things. And yes, microphone.
When you do your practices that are all very game organized, how do you find ways, other than pulling the kid aside and talking to them, to develop real intense skill development when they've got bad habits? If they're just spending time playing, and not doing any individual developing of a certain skill to get tons, they do get lots of reps, but to get those extra reps to fix bad habits, how do you accommodate that when you're having practices that are scrimmage oriented?
Yeah, I hear you. It's a common question. It's a good question. It comes down to the fact that I don't think skill is independent of the context in which it's learned. I don't think you can divorce a skill from the environment in which you have to perform it. So to say that a girl is good at passing, I don't think you can be good at passing. I think you can only be good at serve, receive, or defense. And the only way to get good at those is to be in that situation. And so how do you help a kid get better at it? By ensuring that you're giving them the right kind of feedback and by having patience. I know these guys mentioned that, having the patience to let them fail in the process of getting better. I guess that's a short answer. That was pretty good.
Are your camps and clinics pretty similar to the way you run your practices? Like,
Yep.
do you do the drill stuff?
There may be a little bit more. Most of the kids that come to our camps and clinics are kids that haven't necessarily been part of our club. And so they're kids that they need a little bit more guidance, I guess. And so we'll spend a little bit more time in our camps and clinics, but still I would say our team practices are 99% games. Our camps and clinics are, well, camps definitely probably 80 to 90% games, and the clinics, it kind of depends. Depends on what the clinic topic is. If we're just going to run a clinic that's on serving, we're going to try to create a game, but maybe the first half of the clinic is teaching the kids the right keys or the principles behind serving. So does that make sense? Cool.
Would you talk about your ignition group that you took to play 6-on-6 for the first time Thursday night? They learned it and then they played Saturdays.
Yeah, he's referring to something 2 years ago. This is what convinced me about this. 2 years ago we had and this was before we really bought into the full ignition thing, and we did a 12 and under. We had the 12 and under team thing. We had kids do tryouts, and 12 and under tryouts for me is a joke for me, not for the kids. It's a joke for me because when you have like 40 12 and under girls standing in front of you and you're like, we're only keeping 24 and I know there's 40 of you, and they're looking at you and you're like, so right now I get to be the determining factor on whether or not volleyball is part of your life? Great, I'm keeping all of you. And we'll figure out a way to make it work. That's what led to the ignition program. It was like, I can't look a 12-year-old girl in the eye and say, you're not going to be a good volleyball player. I don't know that. Nobody in this room could ever know that. Nobody in the world could ever know that. And so, I guess there's some context in which you could know it, but by and large, that initial ability does not define final ability. We don't know at 12 and under whether the kid's going to be good at volleyball or not. So for me to say, you can't be on one of my teams because you're not good enough, you walked in, you can talk, you have eyes, you can listen, you can stand in, you can, for us, it's like, are you coachable? Okay, great, you're on a team at 12 and under. And so we had, before all this happened, we had a 12 and under program that ended up being, I think we had 28 girls that year. We were supposed to have 16, 28 walked in a tryout, so I was like, all right, we'll take you all. I guess we're just all practicing. We had 28 girls practicing on one court at one time, and that was kind of what led me to figure out, let's run a net down the middle and have them practice over that. And you can't really do 6-on-6 practice when you have one court and 28 girls. You just can't do it. And I was okay with that. I was like, that's all right. They don't need it. We can do everything. We just play. We We model a lot. So to answer your question, like how do you work on it? Well, they're playing doubles. We call them all in. Hey, guys, let's work on keeping our elbows locked while we pass. Does that sound good? Okay. They all go back out. They start playing again, and the coaches are walking around out. Hey, did you do it? No? Oh, well, what are we supposed to be working on? And so we did that for like 5 months. And then we took this team down to we decided, hey, we should take these teams to a 6-on-6 tournament because that's what they signed up for. And we took them to a tournament in our regional hub, Salt Lake, and one of the teams ended up finishing like, I think 3rd in the whole tournament out of like 26 teams or something. And they had never even, when I'll ask those girls today, like I was having this conversation with her about 2 weeks ago. Do you remember our 12s year? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, how many times did we practice 6-on-6? She's like, once. I was like, exactly. So I don't think at that level, I think we all know that, like, you don't need to be good at running an offense and all those 6-on-6 things that people train 6-on-6 to have a successful. If you're going to define success by wins or losses, you don't need to practice 6-on-6 with your kids at 12 and under to have your teams win. I think if you're going to define your success by other means, which we like to do, then that format of doubles and fours really lends itself to that. So I want to keep you moving. Sorry, John, go to the next one. We're almost there. We're going fast. Here's another important part of our program. Again, suggestion, definitely not something for everyone, but we run a master coach program, which sounds a heck of a lot like head coach for swimming. In that, because I got the impression when you were talking about head coach for swimming that head coach wasn't a head coach of one team, but they were a head coach over a group of other coaches. Is that correct? So that's what I do. I run my program, I call it a master coach program. I think I originally saw it maybe with soccer somewhere, like in a soccer academy, maybe in Europe, but I've also seen it. There are club programs in the country that use this system, or club volleyball programs that use it. I run every practice for every team in my gym. 21 teams, I run their practices. Granted, again, there's 4 of them in the gym at one time, but I write every practice plan. My coaches don't write practice plans. I do. I figure when you're either a volunteer or you're getting paid something that's considerably below minimum wage for your time in our gym, the last thing I want to ask somebody to do is spend more time when they should be focusing on their families, their kids, their dogs, or their work, to write a practice plan when that's my full-time job. I should probably be doing it. So I write all the practice plans. They're a general practice plan that provide an outline, and then each individual coach takes that outline and kind of plugs in the things that will allow their team to have more success. And if you want more details on that, I can always give it to you. The MC, I didn't realize that sounded so cool. The MC runs all practices, and what this does for us is it allows for consistency across every team in our program. This is why I started a club to start with, is because I was a coach for so many programs where the 15s coach taught hitting differently than the 16s coach, who taught hitting differently than the 17s coach, who taught hitting different than the 18s coach. And I was a 17s coach at a club for like 3 years, and every year we would have to start over at the basics on day 1 because none of the girls were on the same page. In my program this year, probably more than any other year of our program, day 1, our first practice, like for our higher level teams, like our 18, 17, 16s, day 1 we played 6-on-6. And we didn't have to be like, oh no, you're passing wrong. Oh no, you're hitting wrong. Because those kids had been in the exact same program for 2 or 3 years. They've learned it all from me, the way that we want it done. And now a lot of my core coaches who have been with me for a while can teach it just as well, or some of them better than me. And so they get freedom to kind of work on their own. But there is a consistency thing, less dependent. I don't actually remember what I meant by that. I think what I meant was it's less dependent on the individual coach to be a good coach. You know, in our area, we don't have a lot of great volleyball coaches. We have some for sure. I guess great's not the right word. A lot of seasoned volleyball coaches. And so for us to be able to hire somebody and be like, hey, I just hired you as a team coach. By the way, I mean, like the typical club model. I just hired you, don't know a lot about you, You pass the background screening. You say you know volleyball. Okay, I hope whatever you're doing in that gym with those 12 girls is working. I don't like that model. Our model, I can hire any coach, and I'm right there. And so if they're not doing things the way we want them done in our gym, I have a daily assessment of them and a daily interaction with them, so I can provide leadership for them as well. And so that works out great. Moving on, parents. Thanks, John. No. Well, face of the program. I don't know how this works for your program. My program, I am the face of my program. People come to my program because I'm the one that runs it. I'm slowly deciding more and more that that's not awesome. Like I want kids to come to my program because it's a good program, not because Loren Anderson runs the program. There's just something about it where I want it, like I'm one of those coaches who wants to get to the point where I'm irrelevant to the kids' development. And so when they come to my program because it's my program, it works, it gets kids in the door, but I'm slowly working to try to change that culture in our gym so that kids can walk in and say, oh, Kevin's my coach, that's awesome. Oh, Kirsten's my coach, that's awesome. Not, oh, Kevin's my coach, well, but Lauren's a master coach, all right. That's kind of how it started. We're getting away from that more and more. So talking about parents, I know this is a huge part of every club. So many coaches don't coach because they can't. I mean, in our area, we've had tons of coaches who quit because they hate dealing with parents. I think we've all had those moments. I think one of the most important things you have to do with parents is have transparency. There's kind of a pun there somewhere. And you got to get it all on the same page. You're all in it for the same reason, the benefit of the kids. And if you can find that common ground, you're going to end up having a better interaction with the parents. One thing we do to help that, at the beginning of every season, we do in-house scrimmages between our teams. We run it like a full-on USA volleyball tournament, but it has educational value for the parents. At the beginning, I take 15 minutes to explain the new rules that have come up, or any of the areas, the gray areas that tend to seem to come up all the time. So I'll get out in the middle of the court and I'll yell out to all the parents and talk to them about rules. I'll have kids demonstrate the rules, and then maybe I'll talk about like, hey, by the way, feel free to cheer all you want because the kids will play awesome if you do. But remember, you're the parents, not the coach. Let the coaches coach. You can cheer. And so we just kind of send that message right from day one with this in-house scrimmage, which is usually within like the first couple weeks of practices, because it's not about how well they're playing. It's more of like a trial run for the parents to see how are we supposed to act on the sidelines here. And we sell it to them that way. We talk to them about that. And we want something else we do for our parents is we really have worked hard on making sure that we recognize the volunteers. I know in the swimming stuff you mentioned that. But one thing like we do, we have a team chaperone for every traveling team. We pay for their hotel room. Is that a huge thing? Yeah, it adds up. I don't know how much we pay, for what that adds up financially over the course of the season, but we feel it's worth it because at the end of that season, that team parent doesn't have any resentment towards us for making them do all the stuff that they had to do. Like they're the ones that organized the cooler food, the carpool, all this other stuff. They spent all that time doing that for free. Sometimes there's resentment that builds up. And so this year we said, well, last year we started doing it about halfway through the season, and then this year we decided let's just go all in on it and recognize that money we're spending on that is like just creating a sense of goodwill in our club. And so we pay for the hotel room of any of our traveling coach or traveling team chaperones or team moms, whatever term you use. We call it the team chaperone. Other ways you can do it too. I mean, you can give them gift cards. You can give them a cool shirt. I know a club, Northern California club, I saw the team chaperone, like the official team mom, which is one person per team, got a shirt that was different than anybody else got in their club. And that's, I don't know, if you're a mom of a girl on a team and you got a special shirt because you're helping out, I think that speaks to them a little bit. They'll remember that. So I don't think it has to be much. I don't think it has to be something of huge monetary or time value, but I think you got to do something. I think this is an important one, as I learned last October. CYA, you guys don't know what that stands for. I don't need to repeat that on the live webinar. But just make sure you're doing all of the things you need to make sure you're covered insurance-wise. We lease our own facility, so the insurance we get, we can't just like sign our kids up with AAU or USAV and be done. We have to have the building insurance. We have to have all the other forms of insurance that cover us. We have, and that second one, I know 2 volleyball clubs that have gone out of business because they didn't do the second one very well. Taxes. You know, how you deal with taxes, it's individual to how you run your program, but don't skip out on it. Remember, the only way you're going to be an effective club is if you're open. If you're not open, you can't be an effective teacher. And so part of being open is making sure you do your taxes well and legally and correctly. And then making sure that you have quality employees. And whether they're an employee or an IC, whatever works for you and your program, but making sure that you are investing time to ensure that they are quality. Educating your coaches and giving them the tools they need to be effective at their jobs. John, I'm almost done. You want to switch one more for me? I think it's either the last slide or the second to last. 5 more. What was I doing? Well, the last few will go fast. One really important point that I want to mention to you guys. This is something that took me a long time to discover that I thought is a really just massively important. Align your business values with your coaching values. You run a business. The business is coaching volleyball. If the values of those 2 things don't align, you're going to run into problems. And so an example of that, John, if you'll flip that. Some of our business values, customer first, flexibility, and how do we solve problems. So customer first, that's obvious. It's talked about all over the business world. Put your customers first. Flexibility, what do we mean by that? Well, in our club, we don't make parents pay this huge lump sum up front. Let's take our national traveling team, $3,500 for the season. They might pay $600 as a deposit, and then they split the rest up over 6 months. That's flexibility. That allows more kids to play at that level because the financial side of it is no longer an impediment to them. And how do we solve problems? I think that's what defines a good business. That was one of the first things I learned working in the restaurant industry is that you're going to get somebody's food wrong. You're going to spill food on somebody. You're going to, inside joke, you're going to have things go wrong. It's how you recover from them that define you. And so I think we have to be able to do that as a business. But then when we look at our volleyball values, we put the athlete first. That obviously aligns. I mean, these 2 slides make it obvious that they align. You got to have flexibility in how you coach. I think if your business value says that you're going to be flexible as a business, then as a coaching organization, you also have to be flexible. If you create a hard-line way of doing things on the volleyball court, and then you try to be flexible as a business, I think that clashes. I'm not saying you have to be flexible. I'm saying if that is one of your business values, it should also translate itself into your coaching values. And then also, how do you solve problems? I know a lot of clubs who, on the business side of things, if there's a problem, they'll bend over backwards to fix it. But if there's a problem on the volleyball court, it's my way or the highway. And then I feel like those 2 clash, and you're getting a separate message from the business, from the club. And so I think if you're going to send a message, you want it to be coherent and the same. One of the best lessons I learned, invest in yourself. Take time to educate yourself. One of my favorite quotes from John. If you coach today, or if you practiced medicine today the same way you did 20 years ago, you'd be sued for malpractice. I think the same thing holds for coaching. We cannot coach today the same way we coached 20 years ago. Not only has the science of coaching advanced, the people you're coaching are different. This generation is different. The way we interact with them is different. So educate yourself on what that difference is and how you can approach them. Make sure you have fun. My first 3 years as running this club, I didn't have fun. I was stressed constantly, and I wanted to quit. Find ways to make sure you have fun. I love playing volleyball, so I make sure that I play as often as I can now to make sure that I have fun. Focus on your own health. I think this one maybe is self-explanatory, but I know a lot of club directors and coaches who are slowly killing themselves in the name of ensuring that kids have a great time. A business can only be a good business if it's open. You can only be a good coach if you're alive. So focus on your health. Make sure I'm not married. I don't have kids. I have 2 Siberian Huskies. They're my family. But if you have family, make sure you're not letting your family suffer for your time in the gym. I don't have any personal experience on which to say, hey, this happened to me once. I don't have a family. I have sisters and parents, but I'm sure a lot of you have husband, wife, kids, whatever, and you get what I'm saying by this. Don't let your family take second place to what happens on the volleyball court. And your friends. We are an accumulation of the people that we surround ourselves with. I saw a presentation a couple years ago where a guy said, hold up your hand. Imagine that each one of your fingers is one person you spend the most of your time with. You are the palm. You are the collaborative product of those 5 people. So who you choose to have as your friends and how much time you spend with them defines a huge part of who you are. And so make sure that make sure, number one, you're picking the right kind of people to be friends. But then also make sure that you're not letting those friendships suffer because of your time in the gym. Cultivate those friendships. Those people will be there for you when you need them. And sometimes you just need to go and have a beer with somebody. And after that tournament and the team just didn't do well and you just got to go sit down and hash it out with somebody that doesn't know anything about volleyball. Sometimes that's a really cool thing to have. Is that friend who doesn't know anything about volleyball and doesn't ever want to talk to you about volleyball. That's a really refreshing person to have in your life, I think. So. I just heard this from Anson Dorrance. I listened to an interview with him, and at the very end of the interview, he made this point. The most important thing he felt, and I agree, that you could know as a coach, as somebody trying to develop culture and character and a program, is that it's on you. Everything that you do defines who you are as a coach, as a director, as a program. And so it is on you. And then this quote below it is from the book Legacy, a book about the All Blacks, the New Zealand All Blacks, and their culture that they've created. If you haven't read that book, it's probably one of my top 3 books of all time that I've ever read. And I love this line from it. When you're on top of your game, change your game. To me, that means right when I've got something figured out, it's time to change it. Don't ever find yourself doing the same thing you've always done, because as some of you, or hopefully all of you know, doing that over and over is insanity or something like that. There's a quote about that. Somebody might know it better than me. But I just think we get in this thing where we're like, hey, that works, so we're just going to keep doing it that way forever. And I think when you finally figured out how to make something work, that's when you should change it and make it your own now. That was it? Oh, that was it. Can I answer any questions about any of this stuff?
I'm going to let everybody know that It's On Me blog was done by Eric Hodgson from USA Volleyball's Arizona region, and it's linked in the Grow the Game blog, or you can go to the Arizona region and see all his great blogs. He interviewed Dr. Gabriella Wolf 2 weeks ago, and he's going to interview another guy fairly soon. He's the director of outreach, doing great things there. And the guy that's in charge of the team manager for the All Blacks is actually Gil Anoka, who's a great volleyball coach and person who got pulled into the All Blacks because of his expertise in this area. So it's kind of fun to see the volleyball world on both of those things, for sure. Questions for Loren?
Anybody? Yes, to your right, Brendan.
Ask you this question about your Ignition team, where you put 48 girls in your gym or on a court. How do you convince your parents of that? Because I like the idea. I'm running into problems with that myself. The 6-on-6 isn't working that well in the really young. But how do you convince your parents? Because they just see an overcrowded gym.
It's a great point. Number one, it has to be organized so that it doesn't look overcrowded. So, you know, we put up those extra nets that run sideways to the normal nets. Once you've got all those up, and we use pool noodles to mark off the courts. And then a parent can come in, and we explain it to them ahead of time too, what it's going to look like. And we tell them, hey, once all these, yeah, you're going to walk in and you're going to see 48 girls swarming over 2 volleyball courts. But if you look at it, on the court your daughter's on, there's 6 girls. And they're playing 2-on-2 queen of the court. Or maybe there's 8 girls and they're playing speedball. So there's really not, their court's not overcrowded. It just looks like a lot of people. And so I think part of it is ahead of the time, letting them know what to expect from that program. We do the same with our teams, you know, like our actual club teams where we have 2 teams practicing on 1 court and 4 in the gym at any time. We have a club-wide meeting at the beginning of every season where we explain why we do that, the benefits of it, and so that if the parent, like we're totally transparent. Parents can come and watch our practices anytime they want to. Anybody can come in and watch our practices. I mean, I heard it from Jimmy John's all the time, and there's a guy that comes in and delivers, and then he goes and sits down and watches like 30 minutes of practice. He said he's learned more about volleyball in those 30 minutes than he ever did the rest of his life. He's not a volleyball player, but you know, he might be now. I don't know. I might want to come coach. I'll be like, hey, you've learned enough, come coach. But you know, I mean, so part of it, I think it's pre-education, letting them know ahead of time what to expect, but then following through with that and making sure that, you know, the right things are going on. And also being realistic. I mean, in that 12 and under program, they're 12 and under, they're 11, whatever. They're, you know, girls are playing 2-on-2, and then you look over at them after 10 minutes, and you've got them up, they're like on the other side of the net from each other talking. They're just talking, you know, and you're like, hey, what are we supposed to be doing right now? We're playing 2-on-2. You are? Yeah. Okay. You walk away, and they're still just chatting. And it's like, I don't know, I love the deliberate play idea, you know. Create an environment for them to benefit from. If they choose not to benefit from it, that's their choice. That's kind of how we approach most of our gym. So, and you know, I would probably tell those girls, hey, finish the conversation quickly, please, so we can get back to playing. I'm not going to tell them to stop talking. I think when you tell a 11-year-old girl to stop talking to another 11-year-old girl, it's like asking a cheetah to stop eating meat. It just doesn't happen. So why ask them to do something that's not natural? Why not just allow them to do it, but hey, wrap it up quick so we can get back to playing. So yeah. Any other questions? Good. No more questions. Can I finish with one thing? I just wanted to throw a couple of resources at you guys, and they're not on the slide. But I'm huge into resources. I think if you can use them to your advantage, they're awesome. And these are maybe 3 that I've come across in the last year that are the best top 3 resources that I've found as a volleyball coach. Resource number 1 is Train Ugly website. If you haven't been there, if you haven't checked it out, I don't know if it's back up online yet. He had some problems with it yesterday, but yeah, he was hacked. His website got affected with malware, so if you visited his website, there was a chance you were going to download some malware, but he was fixing it. Yeah, it's ready to go. It's back up. Trevor is awesome. What he's doing for the coaching community in general is awesome. He has a tie-in to volleyball pretty much directly through John. But I love this resource, and kids get it. I mean, I have kids in my program who come into practice on the day he like sends out a new email, and they're like running in to talk to me about it. They love what he's doing and how he's really good at taking this information, synthesizing it down, and presenting it in a way that looks cool and sounds cool. He takes all this advanced science and puts it together in a presentation that like kids are going to watch, which is like that's a miracle. He's just like a superhero in that way. I put a presentation together that's 2 minutes long and the kids are done watching after 30 seconds. He puts a presentation together that's 10 minutes long and the kids are going, oh, when it's done. I'm like, how do you do that? So huge, great resource, all about growth mindset, motor learning, training ugly. You know, we're training for performance, not for practice. It's not about how good you look, it's about how good you're getting. All of those kind of things. So great resource. Another one is What Drives Winning. If you haven't checked this one out, it's a new favorite. There is, on both these websites, you can spend money. I mean, on Trevor's page, you can buy posters. I'm not affiliated. I'm not asking you to go there and buy stuff because I'm going to make money. What Drives Winning is a book by Brett Ledbetter. You can buy the book. I highly recommend it. I won't see a dime, so don't worry. But he has all of these free videos. They're all from a conference that they did with these great coaches from around the country, including people like Anson Dorrance, Billy Donovan, Sue Enquist. Some absolutely amazing videos talking about character development in sports and repurposing sports for the betterment of people rather than, or repurposing youth sports for the betterment of people. And, you know, you mentioned, Ken, that sometimes people have a tendency to treat youth sports like an entertainment business, like adult sports is. And I think that's something he really gets into on What Drives Winning. Absolutely phenomenal website, great book. And then the third one is a podcast. And there's a ton of great ones out there, but my current favorite is Coach Your Brains Out. Coach Your Brains Out is run by Billy Allen, Niels Nielsen, and John Mayer, all current AVP players, and they're coaches as well. And their blog or their podcast really gets into a lot of the science of coaching, and from the standpoint of guys who don't really know a lot about it and want to explore more about it. And they, oh, you're going to click on it. Hey, click on the number 2. This is self-promotion, I'll admit it. No, right, number 2. So down the left-hand side, yeah, click on that. Yeah, click on that. I don't know what it'll do. Anyway, whatever. It's not really self-promotion. There's a ton of great people on this. I mean, he's gotten people like Trevor Reagan. He's gotten Phil Dalhausser. Oh, he's got this guy. This one surprised me when they asked me to do it. The second part of it came out this morning. I don't know. You guys can listen to it and make your own decision on how good it is. I don't like it. It's me talking. But it's talking about something completely outside of this, and it brings up some of the stuff like you mentioned, how do you do this training stuff. We call it decision training. I think what we do 99% of the time in the gym with volleyball players should be decision training, not skill training. I think that the best volleyball players in the world are the people that make the best decisions, not the ones who do the skills the best. And so we have a model that we use in our gym that came from a researcher that's called decision training. And Joan Vickers is the author of the book. I can't remember the name of her book, but decision training, I think, is a model that we believe in greatly, and I talk about the 7 points of decision training in this podcast. But after you're done being bored from those 2 parts of it, you can go down the rest of it and listen to all these amazing podcasts with amazing people from around the world. And some of them, they don't have interviews. Like the first few, they didn't have interviews. They were just about them. Or things they're talking about, like one of them, they talk about warm-ups. What's the proper warm-up? And, you know, they have one that's on volleyball in the movies. And so they talk about some of the most famous times when volleyball was seen in movies, like Side Out. So it's fun. They're really funny guys. They definitely don't take themselves too seriously, but it's a great educational opportunity for you as well. So those are 3 huge resources I would love to leave you guys with, because I don't know. I don't know if you got anything out of my talk, but I know that at least I know for sure you'll get something out of those resources. So that's it. That's all I've got. Thank you guys for your time.